People mistook the single father for a CEO and the woman accompanying him for a married couple. She didn't deny it at all, simply smiling instead. What made everyone assume they were married? And why did she simply smile instead of correcting them? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We're so glad to have you here for another intriguing story filled with unexpected moments and human emotions. If you enjoy captivating stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Thank you so much for being here, for watching, and for supporting the channel. Your support truly means a lot to us. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What would you think if strangers mistook you and someone else for a married couple? With that question in mind, let's step into the beginning of this unforgettable story. The screen dies now, or this room catches fire, I said, reaching beneath the polished conference table. 40 feet of LED wall snapped to black beneath my hand. The promotional film vanished mid-sentence. The speakers gave one sharp pop, and silence struck the room hard enough to hear the ventilation humming above us. Around the table, 12 executives sat beneath cold white lights, their pens resting beside a contract worth more than I could earn in 10 lifetimes. The air smelled of fresh coffee, warm circuitry, and the lemon polish used on the walnut table. "What did you do?" Claire demanded. "Cut power to the presentation circuit. Turn it back on." I kept one hand near the breaker while an amber warning light pulsed inside the open service panel. Its metal cover felt hot through my work glove. "I need 5 minutes." Claire stood at the head of the table, framed by the company logo that had frozen into darkness behind her. Her charcoal suit had no wrinkle in it. Neither did her voice. "You have 30 seconds. A client shifted in his leather chair. Another checked his watch. Somewhere beneath the table, a cooling fan slowed with a dry mechanical whine. I looked at the temperature indicator, then at the power cable feeding the projection system. It isn't safe. The equipment worked during rehearsal. It isn't working safely now. "Marcus." She said my name as if it were the only defective component in the room. "Restore the system." I could have obeyed. I could have closed the panel, pressed the breaker, and protected my paycheck. Nia's school lunch account was nearly empty. The electric bill waited unopened in my locker. But the warning light kept flashing against my knuckles, and a faint burnt plastic odor crawled from behind the wall. "No, ma'am." The room seemed to contract around those two words. Claire's heels clicked once against the stone floor as she walked toward me. "You interrupted the signing presentation, embarrassed this company, and refused a direct order in front of our partners." Her eyes never dropped to the open panel. "Security can inspect it later. Later may be too late. That is not your decision. Safety is my assignment." A few faces turned away. No one wanted to be seen watching a man lose his livelihood, though everyone listened. Claire glanced at the dead screen, then at the waiting clients. The second hand on the wall clock moved with small, merciless clicks. "You made one mistake at the worst possible moment," she said. "And you are making it worse by arguing." "I'm explaining." "No, you're finished." She turned toward the operations director. "Terminate his access immediately. No inspection. No question about the warning. No 5 minutes. Just a sentence delivered in a room where power mattered more than truth." The operations director approached with his palm extended. I removed my employee badge before he could ask. Its plastic edge had been worn smooth after 8 years of early shifts, overnight repairs, and missed dinners with my daughter. I placed it on the walnut table. The small clicks sounded louder than the failed speakers. "You have nothing to say?" Claire asked. I folded my gloves, tucked them into my back pocket, and met her gaze. "Not here." I walked past the untouched coffee, the dark screen, and the people who suddenly found their contracts fascinating. The hallway lights were warmer, but the brass door handle felt cold in my hand. Behind me, Claire ordered someone to restart the meeting. Ahead of me waited a locker to empty, a daughter to collect, and no paycheck coming Friday. Then, just before the conference room door closed, the amber warning inside the wall changed to red. Rain hammered the interstate hard enough to erase the lane markers, turning every headlight into a pale smear across the windshield. Inside Marcus's aging pickup, the heater clicked without warmth, and the faint smell of wet canvas rose from the old brown coat, he had pulled over his work shirt. Nia's car seat was empty behind him. She was waiting at her after-school center, 20 minutes away and closing soon. Then hazard lights blinked through the downpour. A black sedan sat crooked on the shoulder, its hood steaming beneath an amber street lamp. Beside it stood Claire, one hand gripping a useless phone, the other holding her coat shut against the wind. Marcus's foot lifted from the accelerator. For one long second, the pickup rolled past her. In the mirror, Claire grew smaller behind the rain, alone beside rushing traffic. "Dad," Nia's voice came through the truck speakers, thin beneath the static of their call. "Are you close?" Marcus glanced at the dashboard clock. "I'm coming, baby." They said 15 minutes. "I know." He tightened both hands around the steering wheel, took the next service road opening, and turned back. The pickup stopped 30 feet ahead of the sedan. Claire stepped away from the guardrail, relief flashing across her face before caution replaced it. Marcus climbed out and pulled up his hood. Without the gray company uniform, safety badge, and fluorescent vest, he was only a rain-soaked stranger in a faded coat. She did not recognize the man whose access had been terminated hours earlier. Marcus recognized everything. The severe black suit, the silver watch catching the street lamp, the controlled voice now competing with thunder. "My car lost power," Claire called. "Roadside assistance says 2 hours. Did you smell gasoline?" "I don't know." "Did the engine sputter first?" "Yes." "Then it died." Water streamed from Marcus's sleeves as he approached, but he stopped several feet from her. "Move behind the guardrail. Please." Claire looked toward the sedan. "My laptop is inside." "Leave it. There are confidential files in that car." A tractor-trailer tore past, spraying cold water over the shoulder. The sedan trembled in its wake. Claire flinched and stepped behind the steel barrier. Marcus took the flashlight from his truck and swept its beam under the disabled car. A dark ribbon glistened across the wet pavement, carrying the sharp, unmistakable odor of fuel. He shut off the flashlight and reached for the emergency triangles beneath his back seat. His phone rang again. The child care center's number glowed on the screen. He answered while placing the first triangle 50 feet behind Claire's car. "Mr. Marcus, we close in 10 minutes. I'm on my way. After 6, there's a late fee." "Understood." He ended the call and set the second triangle farther back, rainwater running into his boots. Claire watched from beyond the guardrail. "You have somewhere to be. So do you. Then call someone and go." Marcus looked at the fuel gathering beneath the chassis, then at the traffic throwing sparks of light across the flooded asphalt. "If you start that engine again, you may not get another warning." For the first time that day, Claire did not issue an order. She obeyed one. Marcus opened his truck's passenger door and gestured toward the dry seat. "Wait inside. Don't touch the ignition." Claire hurried across the shoulder and climbed in, brushing past the empty child's seat without noticing the name NIA stitched into its blue fabric. Marcus closed the door against the rain, leaving his former CO warm inside the only vehicle he still owned. Then he rolled up his sleeves, lifted the sedan's hood, and saw fuel dripping steadily from a split line. Too damaged to ignore, too dangerous to abandon, and impossible to repair with what he had in the truck. Across the windshield, Claire watched the stranger reach for his phone while the child care center called a third time. This time, Marcus declined it. He opened a map to the nearest auto parts store and made his decision before checking the balance in his bank account. "Stay here," he told her through the glass. "I'm going to get what keeps you alive." Blue-white lightning flashed across the pickup's windshield, turning the empty child seat into a brief silhouette. Marcus called the child care center again, rainwater running from his sleeves onto the rubber floor mat. "Ms. Alvarez, please move Nia into the interior office, away from the front windows." A tired voice crackled through the speaker. "We're closing in 20 minutes. "I understand. The late fee starts at 9. Marcus looked through the glass at Claire, then at the disabled sedan trembling in the wind. "Keep her safe. I'm coming." He ended the call and reached for his keys. Claire pushed open the passenger door. Cold rain swept into the cab, carrying the sharp smell of gasoline from the shoulder. "My roadside service can handle this," she said. "Not before that fuel reaches the exhaust. Then tell me what you need." "For you to stay here." Marcus handed her a reflective emergency vest and pointed toward the hazard switch. Put this on. If a vehicle comes too close, flash the lights. Do not start your car. Claire studied his face as if authority should have produced an argument. It did not. How much will the repair cost? That isn't the question. It is if you expect me to accept help. Marcus wiped rain from his eyes. Tonight, the question is whether you get home safely. For once, Claire had no assistant to summon, no conference table to command, no title that could seal a ruptured line. She pulled on the vest. Its coarse reflective strips scratched against her silk blouse. All right, she said quietly. I'll wait. Marcus drove 3 miles to an auto parts store glowing beneath a flickering red sign. Inside, warm air smelled of motor oil, wet cardboard, and burnt coffee. His boots squeaked across the tile as he placed a length of fuel-rated hose, 2 clamps, and a small tool kit on the counter. The cashier read the total. Marcus opened his banking app. 1 balance, 2 obligations. The electric bill was due by midnight, and the childcare fee had already begun climbing. His thumb hovered over the card. Then the image of fuel dripping beneath Claire's sedan returned. Not her office, not her order, only a human being beside a machine that could ignite. He paid. Back on the shoulder, Claire held the flashlight while Marcus worked beneath the raised hood. Rain tapped against metal. Passing tires hissed over flooded pavement. Higher, he said. Like this. Steady. This time, she adjusted without protest. Marcus removed the split section, fitted the replacement hose, and tightened both clamps until the rubber held firm. He checked the connection once, then again, running a dry cloth beneath it to catch any trace of fuel. Only after the cloth came away clean did he step back. Now you can start it. The engine turned over. Claire's headlights warmed the rain with a pale gold glow. She reached into her purse and held out several folded bills. Take it. No, you bought the parts. Keep your money. Why? Marcus closed the hood with both hands. The sound landed between them like a judge's gavel. Because help stops being help when it becomes a purchase. Claire lowered the bills, her fingers tightening around them. Marcus pointed toward the highway. Drive slowly. No hard acceleration. Have the full line replaced tomorrow. At least give me your name. Behind him, the phone rang again. The child care center's number glowed on the screen beside a red notification. Final closing deadline, 10 minutes. Marcus answered while walking toward his truck. I'm on my way. Claire stood beneath the emergency lights, watching the stranger who had refused her money race toward a child waiting somewhere in the storm. This time, she noticed the blue stitching on the empty seat. N.I. Rain hammered the pickup roof with the hard, steady rattle of gravel thrown against tin. The dashboard clock changed to 8:01 as Marcus turned into the child care center's parking lot, its yellow security lights trembling across puddles and empty spaces. Nia stood beneath the entrance awning beside a staff member, hugging her backpack to her chest. Marcus stopped at the curb and stepped into ankle-deep water. Daddy, I'm here. They turned off the playroom lights. Through the glass, half the lobby was already dark. The air inside smelled of disinfectant and damp coats, and a wall clock clicked above a row of vacant cubbies. Marcus crouched, wiped rain from Nia's cheek, and drew her close. The staff member placed a printed form on the counter. You missed the final deadline. I understand. And Human Resources terminated your employment access this afternoon. Her finger rested beside a highlighted clause. That ends the company-sponsored childcare benefit immediately. Marcus looked down at the amount due. The late fee was small. The full private weekly rate beneath it was not. Can she come tomorrow? Not without payment. Give me until Friday. I'm sorry. The system won't let me extend it. Nia traced the frayed edge of her backpack strap while rainwater dripped from Marcus's coat onto the tile. He signed the acknowledgement, folded the copy once, and slipped it into his pocket without arguing. Quiet dignity did not make the number smaller, but it kept humiliation from becoming inheritance. Come on, Bug, he said. Let's go home. In the truck, the heater coughed lukewarm air that smelled faintly of dust. Nia buckled herself into the seat with her name stitched in blue and glanced at the wet repair store receipt near the gearshift. Did you fix somebody's car? Marcus pulled onto the road. Someone needed help. Did they say thank you? A windshield wiper dragged across the glass with a rubber squeal. She got home safe. Nia accepted that answer with the uncomplicated grace of a child who still believed safety was enough. At their apartment, Marcus turned the kitchen switch. The overhead bulb flickered, revealing a refrigerator covered with Nia's drawings and an electric bill held beneath a chipped magnet. Final notice was printed in red across the top. The repair receipt showed the same money gone: fuel hose, clamps, sealant, tax. His last available dollars had carried Claire through the storm. They could no longer keep these lights on. Marcus opened the refrigerator, where its tired motor hummed beside a carton of milk and 2 eggs. "Pancakes?" Nia asked. "Best dinner in town." He heated the skillet while she sat wrapped in a blanket, coloring beneath the weak yellow light. Then his phone buzzed against the counter. The child care center had emailed confirmation. Nia Carter. Enrollment terminated. Company's subsidy revoked. Reapplication subject to full private rate. Marcus read it once, locked the screen, and turned the pancake before it burned. A moment later, every appliance fell silent. The refrigerator stopped humming. The heater fan died. Darkness filled the apartment so completely that the rain against the windows seemed to move inside the room. "Daddy." Marcus opened a drawer, struck a match, and lit the small emergency candle beside the sink. Its flame painted gold along Nia's face. "Did we forget to pay the lights?" He set the candle between them and placed the warm pancake on her plate. "I used the money to keep someone safe." Nia pushed half the pancake toward him. "Then we share." Marcus sat across from her while the final childcare notice glowed on his phone in the dark. By morning, he would have no job, no subsidized care, and nowhere safe to leave his daughter while he searched for work. Cold fluorescent light spread across the empty executive floor, bleaching the glass walls and turning every polished surface gray. At 6:42 a.m., the security monitor clicked awake, its speakers releasing a thin electrical hiss. Claire stood before it in yesterday's blouse, one hand resting on the back of a chair. Her sedan key lay beside a rain-stained receipt from the auto parts store. "Run the conference room footage again." The security technician rewound the recording. From the interruption? 30 seconds earlier. The silent image showed Marcus near the rear control cabinet while executives gathered around the contract table. An amber light began flashing behind him. He checked the temperature display, lifted the access panel, and reached for the emergency disconnect. The presentation screens went black. Heads turned. Claire entered the frame, pointed toward the door, and issued the order that had ended his employment. Pause. The technician froze the image. Marcus's hand remained wrapped around the disconnect lever. Above it, the temperature display read 189 degrees and continued climbing. Claire leaned closer until the monitor's blue light sharpened the sleepless shadows beneath her eyes. "Show me the thermal log." The technician opened the system report. Lines of data filled the screen: ventilation failure, rising cabinet temperature, ignition risk. The recommended response appeared in plain text: immediate power isolation required. "If he hadn't cut it?" Claire asked. The technician swallowed. "The wiring insulation could have ignited. With the doors closed and that many people inside, we might not have seen the smoke until it reached the ceiling." The air vent whispered above them. Somewhere down the hall, a cleaning cart squeaked across tile. Claire pressed 2 fingers against the auto parts receipt, then noticed the store address and timestamp: 8:17 p.m. She pulled up the termination file. Marcus's employee photograph appeared. Same steady eyes, same scar near his right eyebrow, though the company uniform and badge had hidden beneath an old brown coat in the ring. Her fingers stopped moving. The stranger who had ordered her behind the guardrail, placed her in his pickup, and spent his own money on her leaking fuel line was the man she had dismissed without one question. "Send the footage and thermal report to the board," Claire said, "and restore his access pending review." The security technician reached for the keyboard, but the conference room doors opened behind them. 3 board members entered, followed by the operations director carrying a sealed folder. "Don't transmit anything," one board member said. "The contract closed after the delay. Reopening this creates liability." Claire turned from the monitor. He prevented a fire, and you publicly identified him as responsible. Reversing yourself now tells every employee, every investor, and every reporter that the CEO terminated a safety worker for doing his job. The operations director placed the folder on the table. Its paper edge rasped against the wood. His access has already been permanently disabled. Legal recommends a private settlement. Claire looked again at the frozen screen. Marcus stood alone beside the emergency lever while everyone else stared at the dead presentation wall. Even then, he had not argued. He had simply removed his badge. "You want the decision left in place," she said. "We want the company protected from the truth." No one answered. The hum of the fluorescent fixtures seemed suddenly louder. Rainwater, dried in pale arcs along Claire's shoes, carried a faint smell of asphalt into the cold room. She picked up the sealed folder but did not open it. "If you correct the record," the board member said, "you may turn one wrongful termination into a corporate scandal. Keep the decision intact, and this remains contained." Claire's gaze moved from the thermal warning to Marcus's employee photograph, then to the receipt proving he had carried her safely home after she had taken away his livelihood. The board member slid a pen across the table. It stopped beneath her hand. "By 9 o'clock, he said, "either Marcus remains at fault, or your judgment becomes the issue." The settlement folder glided across the scratched laminate table and stopped beside an eviction warning folded into quarters. Rain tapped the legal office window, soft but relentless, while an air vent breathed cold air carrying the dry smell of toner and old carpet. Marcus sat with his worn jacket zipped to the throat. The operations director took the chair opposite him and turned the folder so the signature line faced forward. 6 months' salary. For what? A clean separation. 2 certified checks waited inside, enough to restore Nia's childcare, pay the electric bill, and cover several months of rent. Beside them lay a confidentiality agreement dense with narrow print. Marcus did not reach for the money. He drew the document closer and read each paragraph while the wall clock clicked above the door. The settlement described the emergency shutdown as an unauthorized act that had disrupted a critical corporate event. By signing, he would accept responsibility, waive any claim of wrongful termination, and promise never to challenge the company's account. "This says I caused the incident. It says the matter is resolved. Those aren't the same thing." The operations director uncapped a silver pen. Its point clicked sharply in the quiet room. "Your landlord filed a notice this morning. We are aware your daughter lost her subsidized placement. Sign, Marcus. Take care of your family." Through the thin wall came the muffled whir of a copier and the squeak of rubber saws in the hallway. Marcus's thumb rested on the eviction warning, rubbing the rough crease until the paper softened beneath it. Then his phone lit up with a photograph from Nia's childcare file, her small backpack hanging from a hook that no longer belonged to her. "If I refuse," he asked, "the offer disappears at 9, and my record remains unchanged." The room settled into a colder kind of silence. Marcus opened the folder again, not toward the checks, but toward the final page. "My daughter reads everything I sign. She's a child. That's why it matters." He slid the checks back beneath the agreement. The operations director leaned forward. "Pride will not keep a roof over her head." Marcus's eyes lifted, steady and unhurried. "This isn't pride. Pride needs applause. The truth only needs someone who won't sell it." He picked up the pen. For one suspended second, its polished barrel caught the gray window light, and the operations director released a careful breath. Marcus drew a clean line through the signature box, wrote "decline" beside it, and dated the page. "You understand what you're giving up?" "Yes." "Then take responsibility for what happens next." Marcus closed the folder and pushed it away. "I am." He stood, tucked the eviction notice into his jacket, and opened the door to the humming corridor. Before leaving, he looked back once. "If Claire wants to know why I refused, tell her the agreement asked me to teach Nia that money can turn a lie into the truth." At 8:47 a.m., the operations director carried the unsigned settlement into the executive conference room and placed it before Claire. 13 minutes remained, but Marcus had removed the board's easiest way to bury what she had done. Now the choice, and its cost, belonged entirely to her. At 8:49, the building's speakers chimed once, and every monitor in the company flickered from spreadsheets and sales charts to a stark message. Mandatory all-hands meeting. Executive atrium, now. Fluorescent lights buzzed above the gathering employees, while cold air breathed through the ceiling vents and carried the bitter smell of burnt coffee across the polished floor. Claire stepped onto the low stage with the unsigned settlement folder under one arm. Behind her, the projection screen glowed blue. The board members occupied the front row, rigid and unsmiling. "Cancel this meeting," one of them said. "We still have 11 minutes. The decision has already been delayed too long." Claire placed the folder on the lectern. "Run the footage." The security technician pressed a key. Grainy conference room video filled the screen. Marcus crossing the room, checking the control cabinet, then cutting power seconds before the presentation failed. A thermal image appeared beside it, the cabinet burning white and orange against a field of blue. Ignition was imminent, the technician said. The shutdown likely prevented an electrical fire. Whispers moved through the atrium like wind through dry leaves. Claire gripped the lectern until its metal edge left pale marks across her fingers. "Marcus did not sabotage the presentation," she said. "He followed safety protocol. I did not ask why. I did not wait for the report. I humiliated him in front of his co-workers and ordered his termination." The operations director shifted in his seat. "Claire, liability counsel advised. This was my decision." Her voice remained level, but the microphone caught the small breath between the words. "Not his. Not yours. Mine." The room settled. Even the vents seemed quieter. Claire turned toward Marcus's employee photograph on the screen. The same face she had failed to recognize beneath rain and the hood of an old jacket. "Last night, my car broke down on an empty road. The fuel line was leaking. A man stopped with his daughter waiting nearby. He spent his own money on parts, worked in freezing rain, and refused payment." Several employees looked from the photograph to Claire. One board member lowered his pen. That man was Marcus. Rain tapped faintly against the atrium windows. On the screen, the thermal report remained beside his photograph, proof of one danger he had stopped and evidence of another he had endured without using it against her. "He knew exactly who I was," Claire continued. "He could have left me there. He could have named what I had done to him. He said nothing. He only made sure I got home safely." No whisper followed. No chair scraped. Hundreds of people stood beneath the white corporate lights, facing the measure of quiet dignity they had nearly allowed a polished office to erase. Claire lifted the unsigned agreement. "This morning, we offered him money to accept a lie. He refused because he would not teach his daughter that truth can be purchased." The paper trembled once, then became still in her hand. "Marcus was innocent. I was wrong. And this company will correct the record publicly." A board member rose, buttoning his jacket with slow precision. "Then we need to discuss whether you remain qualified to lead it." The wall clock clicked to 8:56. Claire stepped down from the stage and faced the board without the lectern between them. "Then let's discuss it in front of everyone." The second hand struck 8:57 with a dry click that carried through the atrium. Cold air whispered from the ceiling vents, stirring the unsigned agreement in Claire's hand, while the white corporate lights reflected off the glass boardroom wall. The board member remained standing. "Legal has given us a defensible path," he said. The operations director authorized the termination paperwork, assigned the procedural failure to him, preserve executive continuity, and this company survives the morning. A low murmur moved through the employees. The operations director's face tightened beneath the pale lights. "Claire, counsel strongly advises." No, her voice was quiet, but the microphone carried it to every corner. She crossed to the long oak table where the board had gathered, her heels striking the stone floor in measured beats. "Marcus did not fail procedure. My staff did not make me humiliate him. I gave the order." The board member placed both hands on the polished wood. "Then understand the choice. Protect the company's leadership or accept personal responsibility and surrender your authority." For several seconds, only the ventilation system answered. Claire looked toward Marcus's employee photograph still glowing on the screen. A safety worker in a plain uniform, standing straight beneath unforgiving fluorescent light. Beside it remained the stained auto parts receipt from the night he had spent his last dollars getting her home. She set the false settlement on the table. Then she removed her executive badge. The plastic edge clicked against the oak. Effective immediately, I resign as CEO. A breath swept through the atrium like wind through dry leaves. One board member leaned forward, another reached for a phone. The operations director stepped closer. You don't have to do this. Yes, Claire said. I do. She turned to the security technician. Open the personnel system. The keyboard began tapping through the silence. Claire dictated each correction while the employee record appeared on the main screen. The termination designation vanished. The misconduct finding disappeared. In its place came a formal statement. Marcus had acted within emergency safety authority, prevented a probable electrical fire, and had been wrongfully dismissed by executive order. Add full back pay, Claire said. Restore every benefit lost because of my decision, including the company child care support. Send the corrected record to Marcus, the board, and every department that received the original notice. Processing now, the security technician replied. A confirmation tone sounded. Marcus's name turned green. The board member's jaw hardened. Your resignation does not authorize you to bind future leadership to new policy. Claire slid a signed document across the table. Its paper rasped against the wood. It was entered under my existing authority at 8:55 before you challenged my office. Effective today, no employee may be terminated for misconduct without an independent review of physical evidence, witness statements, and safety records. No executive can waive it. Not even the CEO. The wall clock reached 9 o'clock. Her access indicator dimmed on the screen, and the board secretary collected the badge from the table. Power had left Claire's hands, but the lie had left Marcus's record first. Beyond the glass entrance, rainwater shone silver across the pavement. Claire faced the doors with no title, no office, and no certainty that Marcus would ever forgive her. All she had left was the truth, and the question of whether she possessed enough grace to carry it to him herself. Cold rain ticked against the apartment window while a utility truck idled below, its amber beacon washing the wet walls in slow circles. Inside, the air smelled of dust and candle wax. Marcus stood beside a packed cardboard box as Nia held the flashlight over an eviction warning on the kitchen counter. 3 firm knocks sounded at the door. Stay here, Marcus said. On the landing, Claire wore the same dark coat from the roadside, but no executive badge rested against it now. Rain darkened her shoulders, and a thick company envelope trembled slightly between her bare fingers. I didn't come to ask for forgiveness, she said. I came to return what I took. Marcus did not invite her inside. Claire opened the envelope beneath the buzzing hallway light and handed him the corrected personnel record. His employee photograph remained in the upper corner, but the accusation had been removed. In its place, a formal finding stated that his emergency shutdown had prevented a probable electrical fire. Behind it were confirmations of restored back pay, benefits, child care support, and direct payment of his overdue utilities and rent penalties. Those aren't gifts, Claire said. They're losses the company owes you. Marcus read every page while rain whispered through the stairwell screen. Then he looked past her toward the utility truck. You resigned. Yes. You could have blamed the operations director. Yes. But you didn't. Claire's wet shoes left 2 dark marks on the worn linoleum. She lowered her eyes to them. You spent your last dollars repairing a fuel line for someone who had taken your livelihood. I had everything, and I protected nothing but my pride. The dead kitchen lights suddenly flickered, hummed, and filled the apartment with warm yellow light. Nia stepped from behind Marcus, still gripping the flashlight. Claire crouched so they were eye level. Your father told us the truth was not for sale, she said. He made people with far more power remember what dignity costs. Nia glanced up at Marcus. Does she get a second chance? The hallway went quiet except for water dripping from Claire's sleeve. Marcus could have closed the door. Instead, he took the flashlight from Nia, switched it off, and set the packed box away from the entrance. A clean record makes the company right, he said. It doesn't make us even. Claire nodded once. I know, but accepting responsibility when it costs everything, that matters. He extended his hand. Claire stared at it before taking it, her grip cold from the rain. Marcus did not erase what she had done. Grace was not amnesia, and forgiveness was not surrender. He simply refused to let her worst decision become the only truth about either of them. Days later, Marcus returned as the company's safety worker under the independent review policy Claire had made binding. Nia's childcare place was restored, the eviction warning was withdrawn, and no employee could again lose a livelihood to one executive's unchecked judgment. Claire left without title or authority, but with the respect of the man she had once failed to see. On a rain-dark road, Marcus had repaired her car. In the quiet that followed, he taught her how to repair herself.